So the Aztecs come to them and say, listen, our people are starving. We don't have a place to settle down. We have nothing, please let us work for you. Let us do something for you. We'll be mercenaries for you. We'll be soldiers and warriors for you. This is probably sometime around 1100 or 1200.
Okay.
So
100,
800, 900 years ago.
they have a buttress of 300 years before Cortez, 400 years, somewhere in that area.
Yep. Yeah. So that's when they arrive in the Mexican Valley. And, it's not hard to see why this is a place that they would have loved. So they came from the American Southwest, which is just desert. This is the land of the cliff dwellers and very arid environments. And as soon as you hit the Valley of Mexico, well, it's just a beautiful highland mountains, cool, crisp air, fertile valleys. You can grow anything. There's, it's the Valley of Mexico is where corn was first grown, like maize. It's just a extremely fertile, extremely wealthy place, and was wealthy long before the Aztecs ever arrived. Like, have you ever heard of Teotihuacan, the Pyramid of the Sun, the Moon,
Yes.
the Temple of Quetzalcoatl?
You talked to me about that the first time you were in here.
Okay, was I?
Episodes 177.
Or did I?
Yeah.
So that was a great
175.
that was a great empire that existed about 1,000 years before the Aztecs ever arrived in the Valley of Mexico. So the Aztecs found that city, Teotihuacan, and it had been abandoned for 1,000 years by the time the Aztecs showed up.
What was the surrounding geography like there?
It's mountainous. It's like a arid. It's like arid mountains, but yet the closer you get to the rivers, the more fertile it is. So you have a lot of there's a lot of agriculture there.
Dave's got it. Boom.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. This photo was probably taken in the winter, so everything's a little bit more dead.
That step pyramid looks like the one in Apocalypto when they were throwing the bodies down it.
Yep.
Very similar.
Yeah. So this was the Empire of Teotihuacan, which was a civilization that flourished in the area of north of modern-day Mexico City about 1,000 years before the Aztecs arrived. So when the Aztecs get there, they see the wealth that's here. They see why people would want to live here, and then they want to live there as well. And so they're kind of orbiting around the Valley of Mexico, where you have multiple different tribes and kingdoms who are already there that are now living in the shadow of the pyramids of Teotihuacan. They know what happened in those imperial times 1,000 years ago. They know about all the war that happened between the Valley of Mexico and the Maya, and they're all getting along with each other relatively amicably. And so the Aztecs are a pretty savage and violent group of people. And so they're constantly getting brushed out by these other tribes that are already living in the Valley of Mexico. And they're just kicking them out. And they probably orbit around this valley for several decades, maybe 50 years or so. I mean, from what we think. And eventually, they approach the city of Calhuacan. And so the kingdom of Calhuacan, they eventually, the Aztecs tell them, our people, at least we think, they make some kind of agreement. And probably what it is the Aztecs are coming to them saying, listen, our people are...
Someone's not okay out there, but keep going.
So the Aztecs come to them and say, listen, our people are starving. We don't have a place to settle down. We have nothing, please let us work for you. Let us do something for you. We'll be mercenaries for you. We'll be soldiers and warriors for you. And so the Calhuacan, royalty probably gets together and is like, well, yeah, these guys would probably make good warriors. Okay, what are we gonna do? We should probably use these guys before someone else uses them against us. So they're like, okay, what can we do? Well, they're good warriors, but they're pretty savage people. They're not going to fit in with our society. So let's hire them as mercenaries, and we'll give them a little plot of land inside of our kingdom or inside of our territory that they can use. So what they do is they're like, okay, well, let's give them this crappy outcropping in the middle of the Lake Texcoco, where there's like, the lake's real shallow. You can walk across some of the stones on it, and there's a rocky outcropping sitting in the middle of the lake. And it's like the worst real estate you can possibly imagine. But the Aztec prophets and the chroniclers had been told by their god Huitztepotli. So, their shamans probably take a psilocybin mushroom or datura or something like that and go into this trance state and speak.
Texcoco.
Yeah, and so they probably speak to Huitztepotli, their god. And
I think I met him when I did ayahuasca. I
have.
remember that guy.
You may have.
Him and Ben Franklin. Yeah.
Him and Ben Franklin together.
Yeah.
So
Wild combo.
So they're given the prophet, or they're given the great vision of when you see the serpent in the talons of the eagle. That's where you'll know that you're supposed to settle down. It's like our promised land, right? So that's the iconic eagle grabbing the serpent image that we see in Mexico today. Mm-hmm. So the Aztecs are like, okay, well, I guess we're going to go out to this little outcropping in the middle of this lake. So they go out there. Sure enough, there's some water snake on those rocks, and an eagle comes down and swoops down and grabs it and flies off. And they're like, oh, well, this is where we're supposed to be, on this little crappy rocky outcropping. So they start building this little village there on top of the water, and they're bringing more stones in and essentially building up the land and building these little huts on it. And it's like a primitive Venice, right? They're living on top of the water in little huts. And this goes on for 100 to 150 years. And the Aztecs act as Calhuacan's mercenaries, as their warriors. And they make Calhuacan very rich, and they make themselves very rich in the process. And so the Aztec kingdom basically grows up inside the empire of Calhuacan, or Calhuacan is a neighboring kingdom that has dominion over them. And so the Aztecs are getting more and more wealthy from these military expeditions and raids they're doing for Calhuacan. And so after a half a century to a century, the shaman goes into this trance state and meets Huitztepotli, and Huitztepotli tells him, okay, it's now time for our kingdom to be elevated. I want you to send a proposition to go tell the king, to send a proposition to the king of Calhuacan that we will send our Aztec prince to marry the Calhuacan princess and form a dynastic marriage. And tell them that, and probably we just assume that the incentive for Calhuacan to do this was that the Aztecs are getting more powerful. They're obviously very skilled warriors. It's better that we now have a dynastic marriage rather than just a contract.
Right.
Instead of, well, maybe we partner up with these guys now, And so as the Aztecs get more powerful, Calhuacan has this now incentive to be like, okay, this probably makes sense that we officially secure ourselves with a bloodline to the Aztecs and essentially become a fortified nation. And so Calhuacan agrees, and they send a princess over, and they have this wedding, and they get married. They build this palace or we assume that they would have had a palace for the Aztec prince. The princess comes to live in Tenochtitlan, in the middle of this lake, and the shaman goes back into the temple and goes under the datura or psilocybin or peyote, probably peyote, and goes into this trance state. And Huitztepotli has another plan and says, I want you to invite the Calhuacan king back into Tenochtitlan, and we'll have a celebration. And they had something big planned. They wanted to elevate, the Aztec world. This was their overall goal. So the Calhuacan king shows up into Tenochtitlan. They open up the gates. The rest of the royal family is with him. He's there to see his daughter. And rather than seeing his daughter, he sees the prince wearing her skin and dancing around in the middle of the plaza, performing next to her dead corpse. And they had filleted her and cut all of her skin off. And the Aztec prince had slipped inside of her skin and was dancing in it. And so
drag queen filleting.
Yeah, so you can imagine this scene. And so they ambush the Calhuacan king and the rest of the royal family and just eliminate Calhuacan and invade the city and raid it, and then absorb Calhuacan into the Aztec kingdom instead. Except the Aztecs have complete control over Calhuacan. And now the rest of these other neighboring kingdoms and tribes hear about this savage tribe that just a century ago wasn't even allowed to be a part of our civilization, and now they've conquered and completely betrayed the most powerful kingdom here. But I think the short-sightedness that Calhuacan had was, rather than putting the Aztecs out on this crappy piece of real estate, what they actually did was give them a castle in the middle of the largest moat in the entire region with only one bridge going from the mainland into the city. So now they have an impenetrable city in the middle of the Lake Texcoco with all the power of the Mexican Valley.
Do we have any idea how big their civilization is around this time? Like ballpark?
I don't know. I'm gonna guess. I don't know about the Aztecs, but I know the Mexican Valley. Maybe it's 500,000 people ish.
All right, so nothing. Yeah, it's not millions and millions.
Yeah,
or anything
yeah.
like that.
But within 150 years, the Aztec Empire will be about. At least I just read the Conquest of Mexico, which was written in the 1850s, and I think that the estimate was like 10 million. It'll grow to 10 million people.
There were 10 million Aztecs?
Yeah. But that's not necessarily Aztecs. It's people who are living inside the Roman Empire, right? So it's like saying saying there's 100 million Romans. Well,
So
that includes
conquered
Africans
peoples as well.
Yeah.
Got it.
I don't know the numbers of who are actually Aztec blood-wise.
Right. So a couple things here. Let's start with this. Obviously, we're now including people that they conquered who aren't part of the original Aztec tribe, if you will. But how big of a span, including where the conquered people lived, did the Aztecs have in the Mexican Valley? Was it 300 miles? Was it 500 miles?
Well, it quickly went from just the Mexican Valley, so right around Lake Texcoco. You had these several different kingdoms that were around the lake, and then they are in the center of it. Well, it quickly became all of the Mexican Valley, and then within 100 years, it was everything north of the Valley of Mexico, all the way up to the Chihuahuan Desert. I think all the way to the west to the Pacific Coast, all the way down the Pacific Coast into southern central Mexico, all the way over to Chiapas, up to Veracruz. Yeah, so it was the vast majority.
Yeah, Deve's on it. Look at that.
So do you see on the right where it says Maya?
Holy, they have the whole middle of the country.
Yeah, and the Aztec Empire was bigger than this. Do you see that? Do you see that river that's just to the left of the Maya? So I think that's the Usumacinta.
The other one?
So you go one more over, one more river to the west of that.
Yep.
That's about where the Aztec Empire ended. Somewhere in there. It's a blurry line because you still have Maya that are living there.
So I'm not going to even try to eyeball square mileage here, but if people are watching this and not listening, you can see it's a large. I mean, a major cartel would be very happy to have all that territory.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.